Hugo, the frightfully cantankerous T-Rex here. And my little Lego Big Ben. Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. Now, before we start today's episode, we are going to be talking about Rolex. Now, I have been sent by my good friend Mark two of the newest catalogs from Rolex. Ooh, lovely embossed detail there. I just thought I would kind of remind ourselves of the current Rolex lineup. Now, I have two of these beautiful catalogs. I will be giving away one as part of a prize for the Instagram. Every month I'll be giving away prizes for the best wristwatch checks on the Instagram. To submit your wristwatch checks, you just have to post them in the Facebook group. Just giving an overview of the entire Rolex range. Beautiful, beautiful catalog. Anyway, so that's the current Rolex line. And I did a poll recently in the Facebook group. Hello, gentry. Quick poll to see that will feature in a new video. Wanted to ask, what is the group's favorite Rolex? Now, let's have a look at the, well, there's the results. Obviously, the Submariner is number one with 378 plus a few. Of course, I voted for it. Datejust number two, then followed by the Explorer, GMT Master 2, Milgauss, Daytona, Yachtmaster, Explorer 2, Day, blah, blah, blah. And as it descends. Someone put fake. So yeah, as you'd expect, Submariner still the favorite, despite many people not being fonder than your ceramic Submariner. I just thought I'd share that as we are going to be discussing Rolexes today. Anyway, thank you everybody who took part. What do you think, Hugo? Hugo agrees. Right, anyway, enough of this malarkey. Let's get on with the show. Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. Today, an absolutely chock-a-block full episode. Later on, we'll be looking at two fantastic articles on Rolex, some 2017 predictions, and also some of the most coveted, sought-after, rarest Rolex watches of all time. Also, we'll be reviewing the Seiko Solar Quartz diving chronograph, a watch that I've been dying to get my hands on for actually a few years, since even before I had a channel. I was strongly considering one of these. Also, of course, I've got to do my wristwatch check. I am indeed wearing the little pinky. I've put it back in rotation because I'm actually selling it. I know it seems crazy, I've just bought it, but I've found the perfect watch that is going to consolidate a few pieces. I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want the TGV tax to push up the price. The great thing is about little Tudor Submariners, the prices are skyrocketing, so I'm not in any rush. However, I am open to offers, and I just thought I would enjoy it for the moment. I mean, I do still absolutely love it. However, I don't need two Tudors and I don't need another diver. If you are interested, email me. There's always the email in the description, and I'm open to offers. So let's kick off with a look at this fantastic chronograph from Seiko. Now, I must point out, this is the Prospex edition. I'm not entirely sure why Seiko decided to put it in the Prospex line. There's not any major difference except for the branding on the dial, the addition of that little X there. I think it's just mainly marketing. Guys, if you do actually know the reason behind this, please do share down below. I just thought I'd point that out before we get into the actual review. So without further ado, let's change perspectives and have a closer look. Today, I'm finally reviewing the Seiko Solar Quartz Chronograph. This is the reference SSC019. Now, this particular watch comes in a variety of colors and combinations. There is an all-black version. There's a black and blue combination. This is my pick of the bunch. I just love this, this beautiful blend of red and blues. Very, very kind of nautical, obviously. And also reminds me of the Seiko SSC019, which has always been a favorite of mine. Now, I've actually wanted to review this for absolutely donkeys, and I even tried it on one time way before I had a channel when I was living in Barcelona. I was looking for a dive watch with a chronograph. I was strongly considering one of these. So let's get the basic specifications out of the way. Let's talk about its scale first. Let's get the measurements. So it's 43 millimeters in diameter. We got a height of just under 14 millimeters. Lug to lug, we're looking at 50 millimeters. And a lug width of 20 millimeters. So it is a big watch, but it's forgivable because at the end of the day, it is a dive watch. And not only that, it's a dive watch with a chronograph. And somehow, despite being quite complicated, it still is incredibly legible because everything is very kind of exaggerated. It might have a bit of a Marmite effect, this watch. I really like the balance of scale here, and I think actually this is the few times where I think the size is perfectly suited for its use and purpose. So we have an entirely stainless steel case with a brushed top, beautiful beveled edges, and then a high polish on the sides. We have this lovely wide aluminium insert, of course with the red and blue combination. We have a screw down crown with the crown guards, and also screw down pushers for the chronograph. Now, of course, you can't operate this underwater. We have a flat Hardlex crystal, which in my opinion, it gets a bit of a bad rap. I really like Hardlex. It's Seiko's own proprietary crystal. A little bit tougher than your mineral, but obviously not so scratch resistant as sapphire, and has a really nice sheen. We have a 120 click unidirectional bezel. And I must say, it's very, very solid. There's no wobble to it. Nice and solid. Very easy to operate. Now, let's have a look at that dial, because this is one of my favorite things about this watch. So we have this kind of multi-layered effect with these beautiful, big applied indices going around the outside. Of course, we have a Lumi Bright in the markers and on the hands, which is of course Seiko's own fantastic lume. And actually, while we're talking about lume, let's have a quick look at the lume shot. And there we have the famous Seiko lume that we all know and love so well. Very equally distributed, easy to distinguish where 12 o'clock is with the use of different shapes. I love that massive hour hand. Very easy to tell the hour from minutes, and the minutes using that arrow. We even have a tiny bit of lume applied to the second hand of the chronograph that is just passing the minutes there, and also a counterbalance that is loomed up on the sub-seconds at 9 o'clock. A lume pip as well, of course. Just very, very well done lume. I mean, it's very responsive, extremely legible, and lasts for quite a long time. Considering its price range. Very impressive. And you know, it's something that Seiko does incredibly well. So let's take it back to the studio. This raised section around the outside is actually for a purpose. I mean, not only is it aesthetically nice to look at and kind of gives a sense of depth to the dial, but the lower section in the middle that has this a bit of a different hue of blue, that's actually the solar panel that powers the movement. We have the date tucked away at the 4:30 in negative, which is nice because it's actually not that noticeable. Very subtly done. I love that. We have a 24-hour sub-dial at the 3 o'clock. We have the seconds for the time at the 9 o'clock, and then at the bottom we have a 60-minute counter for the chronograph. We have this beautiful chapter ring, sloped chapter ring with a really fine minute and seconds track running around the outside. I really like it. I think it adds to the depth and kind of makes the transition from the height of the bezel down into the main kind of area, or it's like a valley. I mean, there's a real sense of depth here. I love it. I also like how they've matched the red of the seconds hand for the chronograph with the 60-minute counter, so you know it's corresponding, so you know when you're reading this, it's corresponding to that. It's a very subtle but nice touch. So I'm going to engage the chronograph, and off it goes. And as you can see, it's got a bit of a mechanical sweep to it. It's accurate to 1/5 of a second, and as we mentioned earlier, the subdial can record 60 minutes. So inside we have the caliber V175 movement, which is solar powered, obviously. Now it runs for about 6 months on a full charge and is incredibly accurate, as you'd expect. We're talking about plus or minus 15 seconds a month. It can charge in sunlight and of course in indoor lighting as well, and also has a low power indicator on the second hand there of the main time. When it's running low, it will tick every 2 seconds rather than every 1 second, which is a really nice touch. Now, Seiko solar movements have been going since the late 70s, and as we've discussed many times on the channel, Seiko's long legacy of dive watches go all the way back to the mid-60s. So this really is a cool culmination of both of those technologies together in one watch, and it just lends for a very robust piece indeed. It really is a fantastic tool. It is ISO certified. It's a 200-meter diver, as you can see on the written on the dial there. Not only that, I think all the little design nuances, we have drilled lug holes, and even to pay homage to that legacy on the back, the screw down case back, we have of course the Hokusai wave, kind of little nod to Seiko's rich dive watch history. It does come on a steel bracelet. Now of course I have to return this, so I can't unwrap this because this is on loan. Unfortunately, it does not have solid end links. Bit of a shame, but at the end of the day, this is an entry-level diver. You cannot expect heaven on earth for, you know, 200, 300 bucks, however much it's going for. However, I will say this, comes with very thick spring bars, very solid and robust feeling. Also, I do like the placement of the spring bars. There's extra space there, and a little, if you see there, a little angled kind of cutaway. Actually reminds me of the SKX as well. That just makes threading NATO straps very easy. On the bracelet, the weight is a staggering 190 grams. On the NATO strap or rubber strap, you take it down to just over 100 grams. Now it is a big piece, but however, we have got a 20mm lug width, which is a bit small for, you know, a 43mm sized watch. Because this is not mechanical, it's not going to be top heavy. The actual watch itself is reasonably light and actually lends for an extremely comfortable watch. So let's put it on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, so here we are. Now, as you can see, even on my tiny little wrist, it wears incredibly well. It's very comfortable, mainly because it's light. Also, there's a nice curvature to those lugs. They angle downwards and they just kind of hug the wrist beautifully. I also like the fact that the buttons are really good size. Everything is very easy to operate. The bezel, everything. Also, its size lends for easy legibility. It's exactly what you want for a dive watch. Despite being quite a large watch, you don't feel that it's clumsy whatsoever, even though it is relatively tall. Okay guys, let's take it back to the studio and summarize the watch. Okay, so the major positives and negatives. Well, first of all, I love its bold, fun, functional, unique design. I think it stands out. I think everything has been very carefully considered. And considering its price range, it really is unbeatable value. And usually, guys, you know I complain that watches are too big, but this actually was an exception to that. It's one of the few times where I feel its size was justified. The scale, it serves a purpose, and that's the most important thing. It's not big just to be big. It's big because it's a tool watch, it's practical, and I really appreciate that. Also, its quality, its build is outstanding. It's very reassuring. It's something that, you know, and I think this is actually why I was considering buying it many years ago. I needed something to go to the beach, go swimming with. For a beta watch, it is absolutely perfect. And even for a young person that wants something that they can just grab, they don't have to worry about setting the time. I mean, it recharges from just a minuscule amount of light. It really is one of those great, just grab and go type watches. I gotta say, for a larger watch, it's very, very comfortable. This is one of the few times, and I think it's also because it's not that heavy. I mean, take off the bracelet. And lastly, aesthetically, I just think it's such a well-balanced design and layout. There's nothing I find off about it. You know, I just think it's really, really well thought out. I love the colors. I think they're rich and playful, and it's just exactly what you want when you go to the beach or on holiday. It really is fit for task. Okay, so negatives. Well, first of all, I'm not fond of a lot of the bracelets on entry-level Seikos. You know, they cut corners here. We don't have solid edge links. The bracelet, although it is very solid, it doesn't taper. It lacks that refinement. I mean, yeah, it's absolutely fine for entry level, and I understand, but you know what, I would prefer to pay a little bit less, and why not offer it on a NATO strap? Also, it is a little bit unfortunate that the chronograph can't be used underwater. That would have been a real cool touch. That would have just taken it to a more unique, special level. But I understand waterproofing those pushers, it's going to be a little bit more costly. It's a shame that 24-hour dial, sub-dial that is, cannot be utilized as a second time zone. Like in the Flightmaster with the 7T62 movement, I think it is. I love the way you can set that as a separate time zone. You can't have everything, but it would have been a nice touch, and it would have just taken that watch to an even more versatile kind of travel, grab and go on your journeys type watch. And lastly, a very minor gripe. This doesn't really apply to me, but the date window is rather small. I have heard people complain it's too small, but honestly, I'm fine with it. I like it tucked away and quite sunken into the dial. I like that depth. However, some people might find it a little bit too small. Very, very minor gripe. But guys, in general, it's an outstanding watch. I can't recommend it enough. I think it's fantastic value for money. And if you got smaller wrists, you know, you still can consider it. I was wearing it very, very comfortably for the last couple of days and enjoyed it very, very much. Anyway, so let's move on to the next subject. So today we're going to take a look at two fantastic articles. The first is from Town and Country magazine, and this is written by Stephen Watson. This was published at the beginning of the month, so December 2016, and this is the history of the most coveted and collected Rolex watches. It starts off with the reference 6062, which is referred to as the Stelline, and one of the most rarest Rolex watches of all time, and you can immediately see why, because of those applied stars on the dial there. This actually auctioned at Phillips for a staggering $660,000. I think this was in Hong Kong. Then it goes on to discuss the history of the Explorer and takes a look at a 1953 Submariner that sold at Phillips for a staggering $365,000. This, of course, is the Big Crown, no date. There's a beautiful picture of it, incredible patina. Just gorgeous. Doesn't actually say who owned it, just says it was signed by a legendary actor. So quite interesting. Then it goes on to discuss the Air King and the importance of tiny details. Now this is quite interesting because we were discussing the Air King not too long ago. Introduced in 1957, the Air King is considered one of the more enduring and accessible Rolex models, intended to appeal to members of the armed forces and aviators during the Second World War. The Air King made a welcome return to the current Rolex collection in 2016, which I was actually considering myself. The new dials feature a unique two-color yellow and green, Air King logo, the detail that will most likely become an essential design element for future collectors. Now, this is a very common occurrence with some Rolex models, that they, when they're first released, they're not actually that popular, and then later on they become sought after because they weren't produced in high numbers. And you know, the Daytona is a perfect example of this. When it was first released, it wasn't actually that sought after, wasn't really that popular. And in fact, actually, the article goes on to discuss the Daytona and uses it, the Panda reference, the 6263, as a kind of example of this. And some people have said this, that the Air King, the new Air King, might go that way. And it'll be really interesting to see how Rolex kind of will control this. See how many of the Air Kings they produce, and if that will affect its demand over the years. Because it always seems to be, and this article does mention it, that limited numbers always kind of increases the desire for some reason. Okay, and then the article moves on to Daytona. It discusses a beautiful reference 6263, and I've got to say, I really prefer the original Daytona. The new ones, they just don't do it for me. And I've tried them on too. It's not a thing of not trying, you know. The older ones have something about it. There's an elegance to them. They're very, very dated, of course. But anyway, this reference 6263 sold at Philips in an auction in Geneva for a staggering $1,971,000. Incredible, absolutely incredible. I don't think I'd ever pay that much for a Rolex. Oh, and then we go on to the Yachtmaster and the importance of scarcity. This is just what I was saying. In 1992, the Yachtmaster was introduced as a high-functional watch for the sailing world. The waterproof watch features characteristic bidirectional rotating bezel used for calculating distance while on the water. Guys, if you missed my review, I'll leave a link up there of the Yachtmaster. I think it's perfection. Gorgeous, gorgeous watch. Very, very underrated in the Rolex line. And due to the scarcity of this watch, the reference 6239 in 2003 sold for $125,000. It doesn't actually say how many were made. Perfect example of scarcity, just pumping up the price there. Very interesting. I gotta say, I love the new Yachtmasters. I really do. One day I might have one. Then the last part of the article discusses the Pearlmaster. Now, I've got to say, the Pearlmaster is not a watch I'm fond of. Not into diamonds. I don't mind diamonds on the dial as indices, because the way they catch the light, it's actually practical, you know. In 1992, a new version of the Lady Datejust was introduced, dubbed the Pearlmaster. Rare stones and incredible gem setting techniques transform the classic Datejust into something new and glamorous. That is something that you know, Rolex do incredibly well. I mean, they have a whole team of people dedicated just to finding flawless, perfect gems, precious stones for their timepieces. It is something they do impeccably well, and I feel, you know, aftermarket bezels and aftermarket it just isn't the same. But anyway, during the 40s and 50s, a small number of enameled dials were created by the Geneva-based dial maker Stern Ferez, sorry, I do apologize, probably butchered that, illustrating mythical scenes of ships, dragons, maps of the worlds, etc. In 2014, Christie's bought a 1949 model featuring a ship sailing through stormy seas. I never was aware of these Rolexes. Incredible. This 18-karat gold watch with the star numerals and crown at 6 o'clock fetched a staggering $1,242,040, the highest prices ever paid for Rolex at the auction. Well, that's been superseded by the Daytona. Yeah, so the Daytona was in 2016, that was in 2014. So the Daytona beat it. I wonder why they don't mention the actor that owned the Daytona. Interesting. Anyway, yeah, really interesting model. Personally, I think it's a little bit cheesy, but you know, I must say I'm not in love with it. I could certainly think of a better, more enjoyable ways to spend that money, but yeah, it is indeed rare and the perfect example of scarcity. Anyway, a great article. I'll leave the link down below in Town and Country. Do check it out. And of course, what's interesting, you scroll halfway down and there's a massive advert for Rolex. So fantastic. Mind-blowing the prices some Rolexes can achieve. Anyway, let's move on to the next article. And this is from Rolex Passion Report. And this is written by, let me see who wrote this. It doesn't actually say, it just says written by Philip on December the 27th. And this is a prediction of 2017 Baselworld releases for Rolex. And this is really interesting because Rolex take, 6 to 8 years to develop a watch on average. So the chances are that they're going to release a new watch every single Basel year is very, very unlikely. However, what usually happens is we see carefully kind of improvements on bracelets, maybe a change of color, very subtle incremental changes rather than, boom, a new watch. New watches are quite a rare occurrence. Okay, so the first prediction is the Coca-Cola black and red GMT Master. So we have the ceramic bezel this time with red underneath and then black on top. Gorgeous with the matching GMT hand in red, of course. Ooh, absolutely. Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. Okay, the second prediction, and this is really interesting, especially as we just reviewed the Sky Dweller that has this complication. So this is a new annual calendar day-date based on the Yachtmaster 2 and Sky Dweller movement. So a very subtle change on the dial. We just have the addition, that cutout area that indicates the month. Oh God, I think that's a fantastic idea. I'd love to see that. A beautiful evolution of the day date, because the day date has remained kind of unchanged for a very, very long time. Gorgeous. And of course there's some new new combinations, precious metals, giving an example of with this new annual calendar complication. I think, I'd love to see that. And it just gives another reason to get a day date, doesn't it? Gorgeous, gorgeous. Okay, moving on. The legendary Sea Dweller, having been introduced in 1967, it will be exactly 50 years. So it'll be 50-year anniversary. Now, Rolex Passion Report predicts that there will be a special Sea Dweller with Sea Dweller written in blue, and the minute track running around the outer part of the dial will also be in a corresponding blue. Very subtle, but this is the kind of thing that drives Rolex collectors absolutely balmy. And I could see that happening. It's the kind of thing Rolex do, very, very subtle. Definitely, definitely. Next, of course, we have a new Daytona ceramic introduced in steel and gold. I gotta say, I'm not a fan of it. I'm just, the new ceramic Daytonas, they don't really do anything for me. But a two-tone Daytona, yeah. There's also a black dial version. Let's move on. Now this is interesting, as we also recently reviewed this. The steel Yachtmaster 40mm will get a ceramic bezel as well. I really hope they don't do that. I mean, look, I think it's perfect. I really do think it's one of the most perfect Rolex sports watches ever. I don't think it needs the ceramic. I don't think it goes with that blue. The Rolesium, I think, is unique in itself and special to the Yachtmaster. That raised bezel. The ceramic will make it tougher, of course, but I don't think it works. I think the Yachtmasters are perfect. I hope they don't do that. I do hope they don't do that. And last of all, they have an interesting, not a picture of a watch, but they have a copy of a patent, a jumping hour, and then a question, perhaps a new prince, question mark. Interesting, very interesting. So as you can see, Rolex have got a patent pending for a jump hour. Very, very cool. That would be cool. How on earth these people managed to get this? I mean, is it accessible to the public, this kind of information? Very interesting. Okay, last but not least, a prediction that the date just will be made to 40 millimeters instead of 41. The reasoning behind it, the article kind of discusses that they think that the 41 was disproportionately large. I agree. I never liked the 41. However, you know, the process of changing that will be so expensive. There's also some talk of a new high-frequency Rolex movement that will let the second hand run continuously, no ticking anymore. Rumor has it that Rolex is working on a new movement for the last 5-7 years already. The new generation movement will have a 10-year warranty and will hardly need any servicing. This is the Rolex Caliber 3255. Wow. That will really up the game, won't it? Yeah, I could definitely see Rolex doing something like that. You know, and especially if it's been 5-7 years, definitely in the next 2 years. Oh, I would buy that. I would buy that. Okay, guys, so I'm going to leave it there. Fascinating pair of articles. I will leave the links in the description. I'd also love to hear your own predictions for Rolex in 2017. So thoughts, queries, questions, all the rest of it in the comments below. Thank you very, very much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and found it useful. And as always, guys, I will catch you in the next one. Okay, ciao.